You believe that is objective morality then, because objective is one thing, right? There's
No,
good and evil.
this is
objective.
yet again, you're
There's an
conflating.
I'm not
You're
conflating.
no, you are.
Dude,
You
you're
just
pivoting.
asked me if I think
I'm
it's
asking
moral.
a very simple question, Cleaner.
You asked me if I think it's moral.
No, yes, because you claimed earlier that this is
doesn't have
objective.
anything to
yes,
do.
It does.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Bro, cleaner. You made the claim that this is objective. When it comes to moralities, this is objectives based off of survivability and reproduction. So I give you an example.
Within their social construct, yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
Great. So no. If it's within their social construct, therefore it's subjective, not objective. Cleaner.
No.
You're making a fallacy contradiction
the morals,
here.
No.
Yes,
no,
you are.
I'm actually
Cleaner.
not.
So you get to pick which judges debate. There is Jake Project VO Pod, who is the best debater on the panel, and then there is Cleaner 409, who is the second best, and then there's Ticky Tack, who is an honorable mention.
I think Cleaner's a better debater than me.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
then I think Jake and Cleaner.
Yeah. There you go. We got it.
All right. Cool. Yeah, y'all go ahead and pick a topic. What y'all want?
I'm not too sure. Cleaner, I think me and Cleaner actually agree on a lot of things because he's not a fucking lunatic liberal.
All right. How about this? I think I've got one that let's see where you stand on this.
Go for it.
Where do you think morals come from?
Oh man, we're gonna go into the religious. God. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I believe morals are morality is subjective within society depending on your worldviews, but in my worldview, I would say morality would be objective.
I would say it would be objective as well, but this is the thing, okay? So like the secular mind misunderstands the religious mind in terms of religion. All right, religion to the religious mind is objective. Sure. But to the secular mind, religion is subjective. Right. And so that's why I say my claim as arguing the devil's advocate side for the secular would be it is objective, but not in the way that you think it is. See what I'm saying?
Okay. So I'll play the defense. Let's roll with it.
So is morality subjective or objective? Is that the prompt?
No. I guess let's think of a better prompt there, Cleaner. Because we can agree that it's objective, but not in the way that I think, or the way that you perceive me to think it.
I could say morality comes from the basic functions of life. Would you be good with that one, Jake?
The basic functions of life. I don't even know what the fuck that means, but okay, fuck it. Just for the sake of it.
Basically like the two main functions of the cell, every cell that's ever existed, every cell that ever will exist has two basic functions, survive or reproduce. All morals are derived from those two concepts.
Okay, so this is more of like a biological form. So you'll make the argument that like necessary evil
this is an
could be a
claim.
Situation of morality. I think I might know where you're going with it. Yeah, fuck it. Let's try it out.
This will be fun.
Yeah, this will be fun. Honestly, yeah,
All
this is a new one here. Let's try it out.
That means Cleaner, you start with your minute intro now.
All right. The two basic functions of the cell, which governs all life everywhere that we know of. We have not found any exceptions to this yet. The two basic functions are to survive or to reproduce. Every moral that we have come up with, every moral that has been dictated or socially constructed has been an extension of one of these two principles. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay. So morality comes purely from reproduction and or survival purposes. So here's my opening statement here is I would say that when it comes to morality of where it comes from, the Bible states a lot of these things. For example, when it comes to reproduction of morality, I would say that not all reproduction would come from a moral standards. If you would say like something like grape would be morally justified, if that's the case, if it leads to reproduction, therefore it's morally justified. I would disagree with that. When it comes to what's the other thing that you said, reproduction or survival, survival purposes could make a better argument for that. But However, would you, for example, hypothetically rape your mom or have sexual intercourse with your mother in order for the survival of other human beings that you don't know? Certain type of things there would be morality perspective. That's the questions that I would have for Cleaner going into it.
All right, and that is time. I am ready. Y'all go for it now.
So, Cleaner, when you stated that all morality is based off the cell of, for example, what you said, you said reproduction, right? And what was the other one?
Reproduction and survivability.
Survivability. So for example, hypothetically, when it comes to would you have sexual intercourse with, for example, your mom, in order to have a group of people survive, would that be morally justified?
No.
Why not?
Because that would affect the personal survival of the entity doing the act.
Why would that? Wait, hold on. You having intercourse with your mom would prevent you from living?
Yeah, it necessarily could. And I'm not saying it would for sure. I'm saying the conceptual understanding of doing these acts would shame you out of society, or could
we're
get
not talking about
harmful
shame,
acts
though,
done
Cleaner.
to you. Well, this is the thing, though. Okay,
Uh-huh.
like you could get pushed out of society, which would take away a portion of your survivability, but possibly also take away the chance of you having reproduction, right? So, and the other side of that is this also, that there could be people out there that would take a more extreme action towards you, other than just like shunning you out of your community.
Yeah, but I think we've seen plenty of examples of people that were shunned out of like particular communities and I'll take this Nick Fredo that came out on the internet. He was shunned out of online, but he's bigger than ever today. So I don't think that necessarily means that because you're shunned out of a society necessarily means that your reproductiveness will cease to exist. Cleaner.
Well, just because you can point out one exception,
well, I can point out
that one
several
exception
others,
or even like 5 or 6 exceptions. We're talking about a general understanding. We're talking about the understanding of the cell itself. The morality coming from the cell would be
but how is that morality?
Like
though?
If you are in a community, right, you're not going to do certain things that are against the community, because that could necessarily affect your survival or your reproduction.
Wait, hold on. When you said, okay, you made the claim earlier that morality is objective. Where are you getting that from?
Morality is going to be an extension. Like all of the morals that we come up with will be an extension. They will be an extension of the survival premise or the reproduction premise. So you have these two concepts. You have to survive or you have to reproduce, one of the two, or both.
But where do you get it from exactly? Is it science? Where God? Where do you get it from? Or yourself?
No, it's a logical extension. It's a logical extension of these, right? Okay, so like morality says you shouldn't run around and murder everybody, right? Well, yeah, you shouldn't do that because, well, this is the morality of society. This is what society's morality is.
So society,
right,
depending
it's
on
objective.
Society,
what I'm saying is it is epistemially it is at its base root. Whenever you reduction it all the way back down to the cell itself, it is an extension of that concept of survival or reproduction. So if you run around and murder people, you will end up either getting thrown in jail, which will affect your reproduction, or you'll get murdered yourself, which will affect your survival. And so the morality concept of it is you understand this, and so your moral is built that you shouldn't do that thing because it will necessarily turn out bad for you in one of these two ways. You won't be able to do these things. These are the drivers, the base drivers of all life. And so they will instruct us on our morals, what we should do in a society constructed of other beings that also have these same two basic drivers in life and have moral constructs from these as well.
Right, but you do realize when it comes to the judging of what is murder, etc., it comes from the from judges. So, for example, if you're in Texas, and it depends on what state you're in. So, even based off of what is murder, what is self-defense, is based off of state by state when it comes to the United States, bro. So, it's not necessarily an objective of just because you commit murder under somebody else's eyes doesn't necessarily mean that it is morally justified. Cleaner. So let me ask you this, going back to the point here. when you're
Well,
stating,
I would say that, yeah, it wouldn't. Okay, so murdering someone wouldn't necessarily be a morally just thing to do.
yeah,
However,
but you're making the
if
claim that it's
if
objective
you're
based
yeah,
off of that.
it
But
is.
then
It is.
but then the
Objective because
definition
it affects
of murder is subjective based off state to state, Cleaner. So this
the
kind of contradicts this.
conceptual understanding of taking a life is not based off of a social construct, right? It's
Okay, what is
something
it
that we
based off
all
of then? What
understand.
is it? What?
You
No,
take
it's
a
not.
life,
No, it's
you take
not
a life,
because there's no,
you
it's
are
not.
putting yourself at risk. If you're
Yeah, but
attempting to take a life, you're putting yourself at risk.
yeah, but
And
it's not.
so the moral that's created from that is you shouldn't take a life because that affects your survivability or
Yeah,
your
but how is
reproduction.
that moral though? Because the thing is, like for example, when people go to war, you put a gun into a young man's hand, they're fighting for a nation. You're still murdering people in a society. So I'm just saying this. Where does that
Right.
draw the line, Cleaner? If you're saying that it's purely off of survival and reproduction where morals come from, that makes no sense when you actually put it into its logical conclusion when it comes to war, when it comes to self-defense, etc. Where does that come from and who judges that? Who judges that? Is it people? And if so, it's subjective. Therefore, your morality is not
No.
objective.
No, just because each individual can come up with their own morals doesn't mean they don't come from an objective place,
Where is
which
that though?
means
Where does it come from?
they aren't necessarily all subjective. If they are coming from an objective, if it is being derived from something objective, which would be the survival concept, the reproduction concept, these are objectives. These are definitionally objectives of the cell and of all life.
Do you have any proof that the majority of people in society judge morality of when it comes to reproduction and survival? Is there any proof that when people do that, they're doing it based off of survival or reproduction?
Yes.
Okay, where does that come from?
Society says we shouldn't let the murderer run free
But
because
that's
it will
subjective,
reduce
though.
our chance of survival.
Yeah, okay, but at the same time, you would be fine with, for example, the you would be fine with like executing grapers, executing deleters, etc. Right?
Well, whether I would be fine with that or not doesn't engage with whether or
Well, because we're
not
talking about
the thing that they're
moralities.
doing, is being derived from the basic functions of life. Like the morals that they've come to are derived from the basic functions of life, right? They understand they've done something wrong. Obviously, that's why they try to hide the behavior.
Yeah, but where does that come from? The fact that, okay, you just said right now they know that they did something wrong, right? They know that taking a life or any of these things or anything, even stealing, which has nothing to do with morality, has nothing to do with reproduction. Even people that steal, even people that
Right.
they still feel like this is wrong. So
Right.
that has nothing to do with that. Where does that come from? It has nothing to do with reproduction or even
Yeah,
deletion.
it does. Yeah, it
How
does.
so?
Because the reason they have an understanding of the fact that they're going to be doing something wrong if they steal from someone is because they understand that there will be consequences for that if they ever get caught. Those consequences, if they go
Where do
into a
those come from?
home, if they go into a home, if you'll let me answer the question, I'll actually give you the entailment and understanding of what I'm saying. So if they go into a home and
Mhm.
someone's there, they could get shot. That would affect their survivability. They understand that's a risk.
Mhm.
So everything that we do is all about judgment calls, miscreation, and pattern recognition within society. All right.
I
So
can agree with
as
that.
you go through society and you say, all right, if I'm a thief, I want to try and steal something. I know I shouldn't, so I'm going to try and pick a house that has nobody there. Well, you still have an understanding, even if no one's there, you steal something, you could get caught, and that would land you in jail, which affects your reproduction.
So let me ask you this: when it comes to, for example, there's an island, forget the name of it, where they have men that literally get blowjobs from children that are in the warriors. They tell the children through their subjective morality that this is a good thing to help them become men. Would you say because of of that society, would that be morally justified? Again, this has nothing to do with reproduction or even survival.
This doesn't actually have to do. This is the thing, though. Okay,
well,
and you're conflating two things.
No,
you're conflating moral justification for morals being epistemically objective. Okay.
No,
there's two different. No. You are, because what you just asked me was, is there a moral justification for them doing this?
No, I didn't say moral justification.
That's not what the argument is.
Hold on.
The argument is that these morals come from the basic, like the morals we have. The morals we have come from our basic functions that we have to achieve.
Right. So let's take that. Let's take that with this example.
You can go to the Come Warriors of Papua New Guinea, and I'll answer that question, and you still probably won't understand what it is that I'm saying, though.
Okay, well, let's try me out, bro.
Okay, I understand what you're saying is, if these guys are doing this thing, is that moral, right? How did they come to that moral, or is that an okay moral, or whatever? But that's what I'm literally telling you is you're misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding justification with where it comes from. Okay, so in this society, the Come Warriors of Papua New Guinea, they have a moral construct that says that the coming of age for those guys is they've got to suck off X number of dudes or whatever, right? So in their society, these guys will have the two basic functions of life telling them they have to achieve the same moral construct so that they can achieve survivability or reproduction. And so they will adhere to the moral construct that is there. So the morals they come up with will be objective because they are trying to achieve the two objectives that everything else on the planet is trying to achieve: survivability or reproduction. You see why I'm saying you're conflating the two now? It's not about justification. It's about where it comes from.
So let me steel man this. Your claim is because these young boys suck off these men, they're going to grow up to be stronger, which is survivability.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's not at all what I'm saying. What I'm saying is their moral construct, their morals
I
are
understand
going to be based off of their society saying this is what should be done.
Yeah.
And so they understand if they go against their society, it will affect their survival or their reproduction.
Okay, so let me finish there. Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. So the fact that they're sucking off young men, right? The fact that they're sucking off young men.
I think it's the other way around, isn't it?
No, the little boys are sucking off the older boys.
All right, so let's watch the TOS.
All right. So, okay, you already know the deal there. but the sheer
deal.
but the sheer fact that they're doing that kind of convinces their survivability, right? Being exiled from the clan.
Well, it doesn't
society.
There. The fact that they're
hold on. I have a question.
Though,
hold on.
Doesn't
Cleaner,
them there because their society's moral construct is that is moral.
Moral.
And so,
I got you. Right. But and I understand that. Hold on. Let me get to my question, Cleaner. Hold on.
Okay.
Stop derailing my train of thought here. But I understand where you're coming from. So you said earlier that this type of morality is objective. This is what you stated, right? This is objective morality, right? So let me ask you this. Objective means actual, there's no subjectiveness. When I ask you, do you believe that is objective morality or subjective? What's your answer to that? Is what they're doing objectively moral?
From my morals within the social construct that I live in?
Yeah.
Are you asking me my point of view?
From you, yes.
My point of view doesn't actually affect whether or not the basic functions of life are where they're getting their morals from.
It kind of does because you made the claim that it's objective.
Because they don't give a fuck what I think. They only care what the people around them that affect their survivability and their reproduction think.
Gotcha. So it's subjective then?
No, it's objective because it comes from two things. It comes from survivability or reproduction.
I got you.
And so it is an objective construct because it has an objective restraint.
Great. So because you believe that what they're doing over there in the Come Warriors of Islands, you believe that is objective morality then? Because objective is one thing, right? There's good and evil.
This is yet again you're conflating.
I'm not conflating.
You are. Dude, you just asked me if I think it's moral.
A very simple question, Cleaner.
You asked me if I think it's moral.
No, yes, because you claimed earlier that this is objective.
It doesn't have anything to do.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't. It
Dude,
doesn't.
bro, cleaner. You made the claim that this is objective. When it comes to moralities, this is objectives based off of survivability and reproduction. So I give you an
within
example
their
of these
social construct. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
Great. So no. If it's within their social construct, therefore it's subjective, not objective. Cleaner.
No,
You're
it's
making a fallacy
the
contradiction
morals.
here.
No,
Yes,
no,
you are.
I'm actually
Cleaner,
not.
Cleaner,
I'm actually
you are.
following the logical entailment of the two understandings
great,
of life.
Then therefore it would be
survivability
subjective.
and reproduction.
Great. So therefore these two
in
would be
their community.
then.
All right. Let me ask you a question, okay?
Go for it.
In our community, we understand the concept of raping and murdering are bad, and those will affect our survivability or our reproduction, right?
Well,
and so we do not, and granted, we don't always think about it in terms of survivability or reproduction, but that is where the basic driver of the cell is that we derive everything else that we do in life from. Everything.
Sure.
So
and look, Cleaner, I'm just kind of hyper focusing on your claim that this is objective morality, right?
It
so
is
for
objective.
example, okay, so then here's my question here, and I'm gonna instead of talking about the Cum Warriors, let's talk about here in the United States. When you see leftists claim that homosexuality, the LGBTQ, the parades of these old fucking white guys fucking being naked in front of kids, they would say, well, you know what? It's fine because they're not actually showing this is subjective, that they don't believe this is morally wrong. It's a subjective difference between the left and the right here. The right would say, no, this is objectively incorrect. This is objectively wrong. So you even see within societies of what is right and what is wrong. Now, we can say that LGBTQ, when you support it, it doesn't lead to reproduction. It doesn't even lead to survival. However, there's fucking half the country that actually believe this is morally correct. So when you say it's purely based off of just reproduction survival, you have tons and tons of examples here in the United States that is not the case, Cleaner.
How can you show me that they have a moral in what they're doing, that they have a moral to what they're doing?
Well, because the reason why they have a moral of what they're doing when they support this shit is because morality to them is subjective. So even if, let's say, one of these LGBT...
what is the moral? What is the moral that they are performatively executing?
I'll explain it to you. So a lot of the times when you have these leftists, they'll say, well, the LGBTQ have been... they've been prosecuted, they've been discriminated against, XYZ, etc. They'll make all these things that this is morally wrong in their perspective. However, what they're doing, having sex out of wedlock with the same sex, they're spreading diseases, the AIDS epidemic from the 80s. This is all just a byproduct of, negativity, but morality-wise, this is positive. This is the left's argument, but it has nothing to do with reproduction, has nothing to do with survival, because we know that when it comes to supporting homosexuality, it leads to dead ends. It leads into no reproduction, no survival, etc. But you have half the country believing that, Cleaner. So therefore, I would say no. If you're going to make that claim that when it comes to survival and reproduction, you have to concede that this is a subjective term.
It's not subjective.
It is subjective. Yes, it is.
It's not, and I'll explain why. Even in this case, while I disagree with what these people are doing, why what they are doing follows their moral construct.
So therefore, it's subjective.
Because
Yes,
it's objective because it follows the two premises as the organism understands the two premises, it still follows the two premises. All right.
Yeah, but those two premises...
to this organism, it is being shamed and gone after in such a negative light that it feels as though its survival is at risk. It does something that it believes is right in its view, its understanding of morals. And to be fair, I don't agree with that, but it does come from an objective place for them.
No, it doesn't.
For them, it comes from survival. Look, this is something that people misunderstand. A lot of them actually believe that if they don't do this, it's going to massively negatively affect their survival. Like some of them unalive themselves.
I don't think any of them say that, bro.
No, it's a belief. It's a belief.
But it's not true. So therefore, it's not objective. You're conceding to my point.
It doesn't matter. The moral comes from an objective place for them. You're not understanding what a driver is. So a driver is something that makes you come up with something else, right? So like the two main functions of the cell, the survival and the reproduction, all right, they drive what you do, all right? So You have to eat. Does you eating come from a place of morality? Does it come from it's more of a factual thing.
No, it's a biological thing for survival, sure.
Yeah, and reproduction is as well.
Yeah, so then therefore
you have to reproduce. So you have to get a member of the opposite sex to reproduce. But the thing is, you don't always have to achieve both. You can achieve one or the other or both.
Okay, so now you're moving the goalposts. Now
No,
you're saying
not at all.
you just need to get
one
one of them out of the two.
You have to achieve one or the other or both.
No, but because you made the claim that morality stems from these two things. You said these two things. There's two main things.
I said these two things.
Hold on. Now
one,
you're saying
the other, or both.
Bro, you didn't say that at first, but
yeah, I did.
Maybe you did. Okay, let's just say you did. Let's talk about eating, because you talked about consuming food for survival
that
purposes.
Was good, and it's over with now.
Okay, I think I fucking demolished Cleaner here. Let's get.
I think you refuted my point.
Can you get a poll in the chat, Anson?
I do not have the keys to Grid's YouTube.
That sucks.
Streamlabs, or else I would.
I don't think you did.
Debate. I think
this was a good debate. This was a really good debate.
It was.
I actually have one question for Cleaner.
Okay.
So in the example of the island soldiers, the action that is performed is an initiation into manhood. If that initiation into manhood was a requirement in order to get a woman to reproduce, would the action now become moral?
What? You're not making sense, because for them it already is moral.
So it is moral.
For them, it's already moral. What they do in their moral construct, it is already moral.
Isn't your standard based off reproduction?
No, it's based off of reproduction and or survival.
Yeah, exactly. So I just inserted in the hypothetical that for them, in order to initiate into being able to reproduce, as in get a woman, they had to perform this action. Now, wouldn't that be moral under your standard?
Not under my standard, under their standard. See, you're misunderstanding and conflating two things.
See, you did the same thing with me.
Okay, that's fine.
No, you're actually misunderstanding. Right. So in every society, there isn't necessarily similar morals or the exact same morals or differing morals, right? Every society has their own definition of what is the correct moral construct. Okay,
let me add this one.
And so in that society, you will objectively come up with morals that achieve what that society says is moral based off of the two driving factors, one of the two or both of the driving factors of life, which is survival, reproduction. So you'll either have both or one of the two, and that will drive your decision-making process and your moral process. And granted, you can come up with the exceptions to the rule, like sociopaths, psychopaths, things like this, right? But they're exceptions. They do not represent the general understanding of the consensus of humanity.
All right.
Yeah, I never made exceptions.